Okay, we are back. So we'll give it about 30 seconds to a minute to let everyone kind of file back in. I can see some more of the people come in and join. So this is the Crystal Ball Frontier Technology that will change the way we work. We have investors on the panel. We have consultant, advisors, angels. We have a really cool group of people on this panel. And I guess we could start. I'll introduce myself, and then I'll let everyone here introduce themselves. So I'm Drew Austin. I'm the CEO and founder of Wade and Wendy. So I've been a startup founder for almost as long as I can remember. So I was 19 years old. I've also done some angel investing. I've recently invested in Remote First Capital, which is actually an investor in this conference platform, which is how I found out about this platform. This is an exciting panel for me to kind of moderate and facilitate. It's definitely something I'm really passionate about and excited about. John, you want to start and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's John Spinelli. I'm one of the founding partners of Jazz Venture Partners. We invest in what we call human performance technology. So how do we actually make technologies that help people over the entire course of their lives to improve how they work, live, and play? And obviously, as it relates to HR technologies, there's a big piece of your life is how you work. And so we look at it through the lens of how do we help people find the right jobs? How do we help companies find the right people? And how do we help people to up-level their skills over the course of their career so that they can, be their best selves as their developing career continues to evolve?
Ilonka?
And we're based in San Francisco. We do early stage technology investing. We're an investor in Wade and Wendy and Pymetrics and many, many other companies in the space.
Yeah, I'm Ilonka, calling in from Hungary. I'm Dutch and Hungarian, managing the Randstad Innovation Fund for 6 years. Before that, I had 2 startups, which I also exited. So I'm very compassionate with entrepreneurs. And we invested in 20 HR tech companies in Europe and in the US, and including Wade and Wendy, of course, and are very excited about what the future will bring, because we see many opportunities going forward. Just very much looking forward to our discussion.
And if you walked around the expo, Ilonka's pretty much invested in every company in there. No, almost. David Hain.
Hey, nice to see everybody. David Hain, I'm the CEO and founder of Gotham Growth Group, and we are an HCM-specific advisory firm. Like myself, all the partners are P&L guys from the space. We've bought, sold, done a number of startups in and out of this space, also do a little bit of investing, and our clients are global. So we get to see human capital from a global perspective. Probably 60% of our clients are offshore.
Fantastic. And before I just jump into the questions, because as always, we got to keep to a tight timeline. Everyone stick around after the panel. I'll do a brief closing address, and then we have a bunch of happy hour entertainment that I think you're all going to really enjoy. But let's just jump right in. So Ilonka, I think that the first question that's probably on everyone's mind is, how has your job changed, and how have your investment patterns changed since COVID?
Yes, well, it has changed a lot, of course, because when COVID started, and it was a real crisis, of course, and it was very clear that it was a real crisis. We immediately needed to concentrate on our own portfolios, companies. So you look, how can you help? What kind of scenarios are there? How do you do the planning? Is there enough runway? How can you also, in these times, position your investments, come up with ideas? And of course, personally, I've never traveled so little as I've not traveled the last 2.5 years, which took 2.5 months, which is crazy. But you're on the phone the whole time, so you're almost, I feel, more connected than ever before, which is also very special. And what I also like very much is that in these times you should look for the opportunities. And those companies who are able to go through this period, they will come out very, very strong, I think. So I think it has also the positive side.
Fantastic. And So, and John, why don't you weigh in a little bit there as well?
Yeah, similarly, obviously we as investors in early stage companies need to make sure that, everybody under the tent is in good shape, which we spent a couple of months doing. But as we look forward kind of into the, kind of post-COVID era, or at least the, the changes that are being affected here by COVID, we see some fundamental shifts. And to Ilonka's point there will be less, regular day-to-day business travel. There's a lot more connectivity that actually is happening, via digital means right now. And we're saying, like, what are the opportunities that entirely presents in terms of workforce management, productivity, recruiting, onboarding, internal mobility within a company in terms of how you interface with your teams and move and change jobs over the course of your career, ideally within the same company, and then how some candidates market themselves, when they are actually out looking for a job.
So John, how do you think the future of work has been impacted? Like, what does the future of work look like when we get out of this?
I think there's some things are the same and some things are going to be fundamentally different. I think one of the things that everybody, it's always been possible to have remote teams and remote employees, but what we've seen here in the last couple of months is you can actually have remote employees, remote teams, remote projects work very efficiently via digital tools. And I think the hard part was really breaking people's habits and being forced to actually change the way you go about doing things. And there was definitely several months of friction in there, but what we're finding in our world is many teams have adjusted to the new normal and find themselves in a state of increased productivity, and that they've cut out a lot of superfluous business travel and have found new ways to get their jobs done. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying there aren't a lot of side effects in terms of, emotional turmoil and, isolation and a lot of other things that people are feeling right now. But just if you think about getting your job function done in many of the, high tech arenas that we play in, we've seen people make that shift pretty effectively. There are obviously a lot of jobs that you can't zoom into, like working in a restaurant or digging a ditch. But for those that are, remote enabled, or able to actually work, in a distributed way, we've seen that shift happen pretty quickly and pretty efficiently.
So David, that's a perfect transition. What are some of the exciting ideas? I mean, I think that we all can kind of agree that remote work it's not going away. We've already heard from some of the largest tech companies, Facebook, Twitter, Square, that they are going to be continuing to do full remote at the end of this year and potentially beyond. So what are some of the exciting ideas or concepts that you've heard in this area?
Well, first, you got a lot of CFOs looking at their leases these days. But, remote work was usually associated with giving someone mobile access, right, to all or part of the system. Construction, consulting. COVID really changed, rapidly changed, redefined what remote is. And the shocking thing was the speed and velocity, if you will, of how fast that changed. Even if you were down a digital transformation path, and it affects the talent as well as management. And I think that's really important to acknowledge. It's not just, how do I get that? I mean, if you were a mediocre manager before COVID, your day didn't get any easier. It became infinitely harder. So what we're seeing is firms that, the exciting things I see are firms that actually were ahead of the curve before this hit. And what I mean is purpose-built remote as part of their platform. So remember, back to mobile. It used to be table stakes, now are native mobile. Well, now it's going to be remote first. You're going to have those elements baked inside your platform. So when it comes to purpose-built, there are very few who were already doing that. I'm going to highlight one, and there's a couple of others who are close. But if you look at the category that perhaps Ilonka and John would look at in this manner, who addresses this with a technology, it's called collaboration and communication. Mm-hmm. And another firm got $17 million today over in the UK. I'd never heard of them. So what I'm seeing is, back to the purpose-built, is one company in particular out of the UK of all things, launched in the US, called People First, who purpose-built as part of their HRIS And then the only pivot they made is they pulled it out of the HRIS and made it available. So it's consumer face interface. There's no training. It looks like Facebook. It looks like things that you're used to posting on. And it's got collaboration. It's got social. It's got engagement. It's got HR compliance, which is key. Nudges. Hey, did you read this? Show me you read this. Give me acknowledgement. Did they understand it? I got to be able to measure it. I've also got to have check-ins because I need to know when someone's not doing well, whether that's well-being or about to be a turnover management issues. The other ones I see are like WorkHuman has a really good interface, really good on the engagement side. Peakon, been around for a while, good scale. Quantum, and then Culture Amp. I think we all recognize Culture Amp has been around for a long time. And they either have 2 or 3 of the main elements, but not all of them, the way, at least what I've seen from People First. I expect that to change rapidly as 50 guys are probably building it as we speak. So I think one other thing that changes and what I'm starting to see is really kind of what Wade and Wendy does, Drew, and not to blow wind up your skirt, but if I've removed geographical restrictions to my hiring, then how do I hire globally? I guess I could teach my recruiter 10 languages, maybe 20 cultures, compliance in 50 different countries. But I think that chatbots with a good AI machine learning are better suited to do that. And what has grown exponentially harder that I'd like to see going forward is workforce planning. Is now the models, I can't even imagine, well be of my thought, a data scientist, you'll need that, but inside of workforce planning, because as a former CEO, I don't want to get caught flat-footed twice. Now you have to have scenario planning. And I need data to do that. And I think that the chatbots are going to be better suited to getting to me the data I need so that I can manage that going forward.
No, absolutely. And I think it's interesting because even as a product organization, remote work is impacting our roadmap, pretty substantially, our product roadmap. So, we're getting feature requests for things like, we integrating video interviews, the ability to go right from scheduling to a video interview automatically. We've had, we've had a lot of recruiters that have come to us and saying, hey, I was trained in traditional Boolean search where, geography is the key filter in how I source for candidates. And now I have most of my jobs I'm recruiting for are, remote positions, work from home positions, and they have to start to offload those for Wendy to Wendy in the case, because she has the bandwidth and capacity to be able to engage vastly, but also have the ability to be able to filter a little bit more effectively and use a variety of different filters to do the outreach and to target. So, we're definitely seeing our roadmap change since COVID for sure.
One other massive shift that's happening right now is just based on this, extreme dislocation that's happened. We went from a market where we had nearly full employment to where we have fairly massive unemployment almost overnight. And so I think that the technology, the market dynamic that creates is instead of having a finite number of open or a large number of open roles and a smaller number of candidates, that's about to get flipped around, where we have a smaller number of open jobs and a flood of candidates for any position. And so I think things that actually help assess those candidate skills in an automated fashion, help the process of onboarding them, going through the interview and screening process, and really helping the recruiters manage the deluge that they're about to get effectively, so that they get the right person in that chair at the end of the process. With having a decent candidate experience for all involved is going to be a really big challenge, and I know a lot of companies are working on that right now.
Sure. So, Ilonka, let me ask you a question. Let me pivot away from remote work a little bit, even though it might come back again. So 50% of the workforce right now is made up of millennials. So millennials have now infiltrated the workplace. How do their values or preferences, how have their values and preferences influenced innovation in the world of work?
Well, I think tremendously, to be honest. And I think what we will see is because you will have a completely distributed workforce with all kinds of different contract forms at different locations and not at one place, that you will need to go to personalization at scale. And millennials expect that, and they don't accept if they have to act in a group or so. So they expect that you have access to a learning program. They expect that you have a balanced work life. That you expect that you have to keep healthy and from a mental and a physical perspective. So and that's the beauty of data, which you can collect through all kinds of different systems. That you can cater it to the individual. And I think that's needed for the millennials.
Absolutely. I think there's a few trends I've seen that I think are directly correlated to that. I mean, first you see that I agree, data personalization components. I think that I think millennials expect a little bit more of suggestion over search. They don't want the labor of going to find something. They've already come to grips with the fact that they've put their data out into the world. This is how they've grown up. This is how we've all grown up. This is how, so they want things suggested to them in a personalized fashion. I think the other interesting thing also, and I think this kind of relates to, I think this will also kind of move towards some of the gig economy kind of discussion, is I think there's a little bit of a trend around, and we've seen this in the data, around experiences over stability. How do I learn more? How do I gain more experiences? How do I do more things over spending the 7 to 10 to 15 years at one company? A lot of people are starting to move jobs more frequently. I wonder, what do you guys think about the gig economy in that regards? Because that's actually been a big discussion. And with all of this, with freelancers and the gig economy, working from home, gigs might even become more prevalent. Gig economy might become more prevalent. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in there. David, do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, we play a lot in the contingent space, right? We see that as exploding post. We see APAC catching up to the US rapidly, and some of the more exciting platforms, not just addressing the supply side like an Upwork or Fiverr, there's some really good platforms that address that side of it. But I think what we see as the future, and we're starting to see, is all in one platform where you have the contingent worker, you've got the opportunities right there, along with the company that's deploying the contingent worker, along with their full-time, as well as their partners, and they're quickly getting access to the better contingent workers who are looking for specific types of opportunities. And we're starting to see some technology that addresses more than just the supply side, but also the demand side, because contingent workers, some of these highly skilled folks, they don't want to work for anyone. Look at the research. They will not work for a company. They want to work on their own. And to Ilonka's point, especially the millennials. So you better find a way to engage them, but deploy them in a manner with which they would like to have that happen.
Yep. So let me just throw out some, I'm going to throw out some kind of like, I guess you can call them buzzy, but they're really frontier technologies that I think are going to be really transformative for the future of work. And, I personally have worked in these spaces before. I worked in wearable technology, and so I've been around this. And I think although it doesn't feel so close and so real yet, I think it's getting closer and closer. So I'll throw out some words, and I'll throw out some concepts and see if if you guys have thoughts or ideas or use cases that you're excited to see about. Let's start with augmented reality. I don't know, John, maybe if you've seen anything there. Have you seen any ideas in the AR space that you think are going to be related to the work, future work?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, in our world, like every time there's a new technology platform that starts to gain traction, you really start to say, what are all the opportunities that surround it? Frequently, it starts off with media and entertainment, which is actually my background prior to becoming an investor. But then it cascades into okay, what can we do in the world of workforce productivity? What we've seen on, VR kind of came out of the gate pretty quickly, and then kind of did the standard Gartner trough of disillusionment move. where it took a little time to gain traction. It's probably starting to dig its way back out now. But we've seen what VR is particularly good at is actually creating experiences, evoking emotions. And we've seen then, therefore, people start to use it for remote training, or whether that's sensitivity training or empathy and put yourself in somebody else's shoes, which actually works really well in the world of diversity and inclusion. On the flip side of things, like skills training. So how can I actually learn how to do a surgical procedure or work a forklift? We've seen a lot of these types of companies. We still think largely that the number of units of VR hardware that are out there make it a little bit prohibitive to have any mass market type applications.
We're waiting for Apple to come into the market.
It's happening. So on the AR side of things, where you can use a phone as the platform, glasses that are coming really soon, or like high-end work-related headsets like the one Microsoft has, that's where we're seeing a much more rapid adoption. A lot of those applications are things like remote hands, where I can wear a pair of these AR goggles out into the field and have an expert behind me, at the home office, who actually knows how to repair elevators or do a wiring harness in an airplane. And therefore you can kind of actually distribute these very specialized skills in a more kind of broad way. Like we've seen lots and lots of enablement on the AR side of things that was otherwise not possible, but it's still early days in all honesty. So I think, people are still throwing a lot of things up against the wall, and those are the ones that are starting to stick right now.
Yeah, I'll add. I think that since COVID and how video conferencing and video calls have become such an important part of my life, I'm very excited for the evolution to when augmented reality becomes a part of the way that we communicate and collaborate. I think that's going to be a really exciting next wave, because we now know that we know that remote work's coming. We know that digital. We know that video and communication is so important in how we interact. It seems like the obvious next step is an AR version of that. I'm really excited to see that. Ilonka, have you seen anything in the blockchain space when it comes to talent or future work?
Yeah, we have been looking at a lot of companies in the blockchain, especially verification of skills, verification of background, and there are a lot of good initiatives there. Also the challenge is, of course, that you need to really you need a lot of stakeholders to make it happen. And as adoption of technology is more complicated than technology itself, mm-hmm. that's the most difficult part. So how do you move the whole ecosystem to adopt that technology? And how do you find a business model that people who contribute also get something back in? So we haven't seen yet something which solves it all, but there are many interesting initiatives.
Yeah, I'm also a passionate follower of the blockchain ecosystem. I think that there's definitely going to be an opportunity for like a true talent passport, like a talent identity, or even just a new version of a resume, or whatever LinkedIn becomes, because your credentials, your profile, your resume, there is an element of trust and visibility and transparency that's really needed, so that we can all kind of make sure that we're making decisions, especially when it comes to hiring, based on accurate data. So, and I think the blockchain could create a lot of that. My extent of blockchain utilization so far has been in the art space. I'm a big crypto art guy. I like that stuff, but I haven't yet seen it enter into the future of work. But I will say this: if you want to connect the dots there, I follow a lot of the crypto artists, and they're finding new opportunities to actually monetize their art through limited edition and limited supply creations that they make in digital art, that I think is going to open up an entirely new wave gig opportunities and art and creative opportunities so that people can monetize their work in a new way. So I think that's really powerful. Yeah.
One of the things that I read on blockchain is that something like 50% of certifications are fraudulent.
Yeah.
And that is a perfect opportunity for blockchain. And I'm starting to see, in Europe, folks starting to attack that, mm-hmm. and come at it the right way. It takes a while to Ilonka's point, and it needs scale. But boy, what a perfect layup of an application.
Totally, I agree. Okay, so I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to get to the audience questions. There'll be a bunch in the audience. First, my last question I want to ask each of you is, what is your call to arms? What do you want to see more of? What do you want to invest in? What do you want to see more of? This world has changed. Where are the problems that we're not solving yet, or that need some attention and focus?
So my firm has sort of a unique bent on things, and we really try to understand the human side of technology. And so for us, it's really the Holy Grail is really understanding a person's capabilities and helping them to sort of maximize their potential throughout the course of their career and their lives more wholly. And so any technology that we see that actually meaningfully can understand somebody's aptitude and their matching, in terms of their capabilities with a certain job opportunity or career move, those are the ones that we find most interesting, because ultimately people thrive whenever they are in jobs that actually match their skills.
Sure.
And so they get happiness, satisfaction, and they perform better. They stick around longer. They have happier bosses, and they have more productive companies. And so those are the things that where we see like these incredible efficiencies. In the old system by which we would interview, screen, assess people's skills is outdated. It tells you, resume tells you what somebody did historically, not what their potential is, not what they're good at, not what they could possibly achieve. And so those are the things that we're keeping our eyes peeled for. It helps that my partners are all a bunch of cognitive neuroscientists. And so we definitely view the world through that lens, and that's pretty helpful. But that to us is like, kind of the next level up in, HR technologies. It's going from systems that automate some of the processes around, moving people into and out of jobs, into actually helping people get the right skills for the right jobs, over time.
That got me thinking while you were saying that. A space that I picked up personally. I picked up meditation about 3-4 years ago, and I've built it into my life. And I'm very excited to see some innovation and building in mental fitness. I think that's going to be, especially with all of this seclusion and all the things we're dealing with as a society right now. I think we all need some new mental fitness exercises. There's a gym on every block, but I think we really need to start working out our brain a little bit more. So that's an area that I'm really excited about. So
we're investors in Arianna Huffington's company, Thrive. And that's a lot of what they're doing is really workforce wellness, horizontally, longitudinally across your career within a company. And it's really resonating with a lot of people. It's like, okay, now I can work remotely, but some of the downside effects are very real in terms of feeling isolated. A lot of your social life really does revolve around the 8 to 10 hours a day you spend in the office, especially if you're a millennial. That's your peer group, and you've been disconnected from them. And so we're looking at a lot of technologies that actually go to address the other side of remote work, the unintended consequences that are happening here.
David, what's your call on? What do you want to see more?
We've been proponents for a while of talent pools, and that has a lot of different meanings to different people. But a talent pool to us is a living, breathing organism. It's you've got to somehow disintermediate what happens with job boards and yeah, I remember at Ronstadt, I won't say which group, Ilonka, I'd asked the gentleman who analyzes data, who's looking at his data lake, I said, what's the weirdest thing you've seen this year? He said, oh, I got it. We paid for one guy 52 times. And beyond the one guy got 50 and then nobody hired him. But the fact is that if you can disintermediate that, if you're going to engage in someone, especially if it's a chatbot where you've spent more time, you've got a lot of data on that person, why not put that person on your bench? Why not combine that with your contingent workers and feed those people? To John's point, man, they don't have the socials, so they need to come to your talent pool for a reason, and it's a marketing exercise as much as anything. But once you capture that individual and you didn't hire them, or you think you might hire them in the future, I just think a better way to quickly, and the statistics are there, quicker hires, better retention, quicker in terms of going through the process. So we're just huge fans of the talent pools.
Ilonka, what are your thoughts? What do you want to see more of?
Yes. No, well, really improving professional lives from the talent perspective. So if you're on your own, you're self-employed, or you shift jobs very often, then you need to start planning. You have to start planning your finances. You have to start planning your risk, your insurances, your learning. So very much from a talent perspective, I think there's so much to be done.
Yeah,
I'm going to toss on to that. What we're seeing now is people, everybody gets this. You will, in today's day and age, have many more jobs than we did in our generation or our parents did over the course of your career. And being a lifelong learner, actually acquiring skills along the way, is super important to long-term success. There's a book that I'll just throw out my superfluous book recommendation right now, but there's a book that just came out called Blink, or recently came out. Not Blink. I'm sorry. Blink. And that goes through a lot of the mechanics of why over time one can, it's called Range. I'm sorry. And it goes through a lot of the mechanics of over time, why this collection of skills ultimately leads towards a more productive career than being a specialist in any one domain in today's day and age.
Yeah. Actually, I think Reid Hoffman wrote a book about something similar to that, about how it's a collection of experiences and whatnot. And Ilonka, just to add on to what you were saying also, I think that there is, I don't remember if this is a portfolio company of yours or not, but I also think that the benefits and insurance benefits and perks of companies is going to change. Like, my employees now, commuter benefits is not going to be very helpful because no one's commuting. So, maybe they prefer a Netflix subscription or a Spotify subscription or a Peloton, or those are, these types of, well, of course they'd like a Peloton, but at least a Peloton mobile subscription, that'll do. but these are the new types of perks and benefits that the millennial generation especially is looking for, or the future of work the remote work generation will be looking for. Is an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, and if you only look at pensions, the transferability of pensions is so difficult. So all these benefits should be at the side of the talent and should be very easily being brought with you wherever you go. And whether it's learning, the insurances, finances, healthcare, whatever. So it's that's a whole new area which is so underdeveloped yet. So I think we will see a lot of opportunities there.
Okay, great. So let me get a couple questions here. So first one, David, I'll give this one to you, David. Do you foresee any consolidation in the market, in particular areas within HR tech in the next few months? Likewise, where is the concentration of investment in terms of innovation? Maybe I could break that up, but David, what are your thoughts?
I'll take the first part of that. I think there's going to be consolidation. I mean, at some level, you have let's put it this way. On March 14th, capital was a commodity, and on March 18th, it was a competitive advantage. I think there are good companies that were doing quite well, were rewarded for growth, not for EBITDA, who got caught, and they're going to come out the other side. So I think they're going to be, if you're a bigger company, that build, buy, partner thing, I think there's going to be a lot of the smaller companies who may not have access to another round of funding or have stretched themselves a bit thin and really need to find a home. So I think there's going to be consolidation, and it'll be buying innovation by the bigger companies in many ways. So I think that's really where it's going to be. Do I see it in a given area? We're so fragmented and segmented in every sector we have. There's always ripe opportunities there, but I'm not sure I call out one sector, but clearly there's going to be consolidation. I think we'll have a very busy Q3, Q4.
Sure. John, let me give you the other part to this question. So likewise, where's the concentration of investment in terms of innovation?
Yeah, so I think in the short run, the answer is going to be anything that enables remote work, right? So it's communications, collaboration. If you just look at Zoom stock price, for instance, it's gone through the roof.
Athleisure. At leisure clothing is just.
And sadly, not one of my investments. And so, ultimately, I think that that's a trend that will continue. But I believe it's in the near term, that's where everybody's eyes are in terms of making short-term investments that are get a tailwind from kind of just the shifts enabled by COVID here.
Yeah.
In the long run, I think it's a lot of the other stuff we were talking about that that continues to actually enable this remote workforce to move together productively, get the right people in the right roles. And then I think the hierarchy and nature of how we build and run teams is going to change too. I think that's one of the other bits that is inherently going to shift as we move towards maybe not entirely remote work, but and I call them hybrid teams, where you'll have some people on site and complete fungibility, whether you're actually in the building or you're far away. And I think it's going to have a different type of manager. It's going to have a different type to be successful in that context. It's going to have a different type of team structure. Obviously, all the tools, and that's the investments that people are making right now in the picks and shovels, enabling layers. They will all kind of be essential in this.
Yep. So that nails my last question, which Ilonka, I'll throw to you. We had two people want this question. Do we think, and John kind of just mentioned it, but do we think that utilization of technology, especially as we continue to work remotely, will call organizations to restructure and challenge traditional hierarchies? Which is questions.
It's a layup.
Yeah.
Yes, well, there are some very big statements that middle management is not necessary anymore. As a result of that, I'm not sure of that, because what you will see, and that's also studies have shown this in this period, is that people need a lot of personal attention, and not so. I think the one-on-ones and the personal attention is only increasing in these times, and will also be very important. On the hierarchy, I think there is no hierarchy anymore. That's the wonderful situation of not not being in an office. and if you look only what is Randstad is happening, that the CEO is talking to everybody at the same time with the same voice. Much more, and you could almost say there's more hierarchy and there's less hierarchy, so you get more this one voice as well. But I think hierarchies are really from the past, and I think we will see self-steering teams with distributed workforces. And you will have a small leadership teams who are really having a vision and really driving the business and communicate with everybody.
I completely agree. This has been fantastic. I will say that so far I have on my side of my screen, like I always do, my Slack, and I've already gotten 3 messages saying, does this mean you're getting us all Peloton? So
you have my address, right?
I heard you promise it, Drew.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing so far for at least my team. But guys, I want to thank everybody for joining this panel. I think this was really exciting and fun discussion, especially the right panel to end the day so we can start thinking forward. I'm going to, so I want to thank everybody, and I'll when you guys jump off, I will do a quick final wrap up, and then we will move on to the entertainment.